Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a book talk, a Percy Jackson book talk after a while. I recently reread The Wrath of the Triple Goddess, which is book seven, technically in the original five series, and I wanted to share my thoughts. So, this book is set after the events of Heroes of Olympus, but is an extension of the original five book series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And we get Percy's narration, his first person POV, along with the humor, which is, always a deal in my books. And I can criticize Rick Riordan all I want for tormenting Percy for content, all the while being super hyped for any new book in the Percy Jackson universe. Whenever there is new Percy Jackson content, I am sad. I'm sad. I'm sorry. I will devour that stuff as soon as it comes out. Thank you very much. There is also the fact that yes, Uncle Rick does seem to be milking this, but he's also doing something different. It's not the same vibe as before, as the original five books, because the last of those came out 15 years ago, and both Percy and Rick have grown so much as people since then. Not only did Percy live through another world ending crisis, he's also worried about getting into college and spending a decent life with Annabeth. He just wants some semblance of a normal domestic life with his friends and family. So his feelings and motives are much more mature as compared to where we left off 15 years ago. So my point is that things are different, and that is why it is worth writing new books about. So yeah, like I said, he's afraid of not getting into college. He's afraid of not getting a shot at a normal life. He's no longer a 12-year-old boy going on a quest after quest, dealing with catastrophe after catastrophe. He's 17 and wants to get through high school and into college with his girlfriend. It's as simple as that. But also, like I said, much more mature and just a different vibe. He is also dealing with much more mature themes. Like, there is a very strong existential theme in the new books, both like Chalice of the Gods and Wrath of the Triple Goddess. There is an incident I absolutely love to quote whenever I get the chance to. Percy had to embrace the god of old age in book 6, Chalice of the Gods, because he realized he cannot defeat him. Old age cannot be defeated, it can only be accepted and embraced. Then, in this book, he has a fear of being wiped out of existence by Hecate for pissing her off. He also thinks a lot about crossroads and her being the goddess of the crossroads. He thinks about choices and temptation and regrets. Like, the entire plot seems to be much deeper and more meaningful than the original five books, although I don't exactly remember them because it's been a while since I reread them. Nonetheless, even though the common thread that is tying these newer books together, that is getting into college, is much less threatening than the one of the original series, which was saving the world from a takeover by the Titans. Each book individually reflects more mature thoughts and emotions. So, being a psychology major, I just have to bring up psychology, and this book definitely was quite psychological and abstract feelings and thoughts and fears. Um, so there is a lot of hypothetical deductive thinking at play. Percy has reached the Piagetian formal operational stage of psychological development, which not like at the age of 17. People usually reach that at the age of as soon as they become teenagers, which is 13, 14. But basically, yeah, so he's reached that. And this is the stage where one is able to manipulate objects, think of different courses of action, and understand the consequences of different courses of action completely mentally. At one point in the book, he makes eye contact with Annabeth and they mentally exchange this thought: how long before our luck runs out? And again, circling back to the existential themes in the book, there are many incidents like this where Percy expresses very existential fears that I, at the age of 19, resonate with as well. Not only do we get to see much more mature fears, we also get to feel more mature emotions, like Percy empathizing with Hekuba and Gale. Hekuba, I'm not really sure if that's how her name is pronounced. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly and let me know how it's actually pronounced. So yeah, so he is empathizing with Hekuba and Gale, who he was supposed to pet sit for Hecate, but they end up escaping the house while he and Annabeth were away. More on that later. So he's able to convince them to come back because he sees the world through their eyes and feels their pain. He empathizes with them. This also corresponds to the Percy we see on the show, because I was recently rewatched the show, so I was making some connections, and how it's reiterated that he sees the world differently. He isn't like the gods, and to him, it's not about power and glory. He's a people person, and that's how he gets Hekuba and Gale to come back. He's the most genuine and kind person ever, and I love him so much. I'm gonna sob. I'm not even kidding. Gale and Hekuba have pretty amazing stories. And again, I don't really remember the OG books, but I do not recall the stories of the mythical people and creatures being so deep and like so philosophical. And Hekuba was Trojan as well. Like the Greeks were responsible for her misery, and Percy feeling her pain, seeing the world from her eyes, understanding her discontent of the Greeks, like his family, his own people, is also quite mature. Like seeing the world from somebody else's perspective, and that somebody else is basically on like the other side as you, if you know what I mean. Like you guys are like miles apart in terms of worldview, but being able to see the world from that person's eyes, again, I think that's very mature. Take a shot every time I say mature. Actually, don't, because you're gonna get alcohol poisoning. Even with Gale, it was believed that like she got turned into a polecat because Hecate was jealous of her. But contrary to that, Hecate did what she did to save Gale. She offered her sanctuary when Gale was being persecuted, as people considered her a witch. And I mean, of course, she was a great alchemist, and a woman being like so talented and powerful is something society has a hard time digesting. Pun intended, like because Kale has like gas problem. That was funny in my head. Okay, so like we kind of got to see it with the Medusa thing in the show, and also how a lot of feminist, just a lot of like retelling of Medusa and like a different perspective of looking at Medusa, questioning the original story, comes from the fact that Athena never punished Medusa. Like that was not punishment. Medusa was basically SA'd by Poseidon, and Athena gave her a gift so that she would never be bullied that way by anybody ever again, so that she'd be able to protect herself. This is mentioned by Medusa in the show as well. So like I just a different perspective of looking at these like Greek myths that tend to be very patriarchal and very like, oh, not really questioning why the victims, or why like monsters are monsters. So the thing that the show kind of tried to do, and that a lot of people have been doing for a while, questioning and critically analyzing why myths have this very patriarchal, very like one-sided hero versus monster, black and white sort of view. So Percy does ask Hecate to like treat her pets better and give them like stuff that they were deprived of, instead of just treating them like pets, like treat them like, people who were human beings and people who have human desires still. Gods are like symbolism. Gods are symbols of humanity, of elements, of everything, and then they are also imperfect. She had something that could be improved, but basically, why she turned Gale into a polecat was like not a punishment, or not out of jealousy or out of spite, but because of genuinely wanting to help her and save her life. Okay. So the reason the pets got out in the first place is because Grover accidentally blew the place up, and later in the book he admits that he doesn't want Percy and Annabeth to leave for college, so he subconsciously sabotaged the quest, as if they would have been successful, Percy would get a recommendation letter for college. That is the whole point of these new books, that Percy does a quest for a god and they give him a recommendation letter for college, because his grades are in the dumps and he needs those recommendation letters. So Grover doesn't want to be left alone on the East Coast while Percy and Annabeth go to the West Coast, and he feels guilty for having like subconsciously sabotaged their quest. Okay, Sally Jackson, I love her. Me when Sally Jackson. Okay, so she's the sweetest person ever, and she literally did such a good job raising Percy, which is also something that is highlighted in the show. She's the reason he's sweet and kind and compassionate and isn't a fucking douchebag like demigods and gods tend to be. So I love her dialogues in the book and her wisdom. It's also interesting that her childhood was somewhat similar to Percy's in the sense that she went through something similar as she saw things other people didn't, because she's one of the rare mortals who can see through the mist that conceals the magical world from mortal eyes. And she wanted to enroll in Hecate's school but never did because the school wasn't there by the time she approached Hecate. Hecate did, however, help her by telling her there is nothing wrong with her vision. And again, that's kind of like Percy's story being like full circle and similar to Sally's, because he also saw things other people didn't, and people thought, oh, he's crazy. I am a very thorough person and I made notes while rereading the book. I also like annotated while reading, but I especially made notes to refer to while doing the review, book talk sort of thing that I'm doing right now. Um, Basically, what I want to talk about now is Percy and Annabeth being the cutest couple ever. And so, like, chapter 32 is basically they are like summoning the ghosts to fix the mansion, the manse, and they basically had to use Hecate's torches to summon the undead. And top 10 most romantic moments. Persabeth basically, so like the torches are too much of a burden to bear to be borne by just one of them. So they bear them together. Annabeth holds one of them and Percy holds the other, and it's so cute. And basically Percy says this. I figured that after holding the way to the sky and trekking through Tartarus together, the two of us were about as in sync as a couple could be. There might not be any I in team, but there was definitely an A for Annabeth and three other letters that don't really stand for anything. So let's forget I said that. The point was, we were great collaborators. I wasn't sure of much else, but I was sure of that. And it also is kind of reminiscent of that line in The Last Olympian, I believe, where Percy says, um, no, I don't know if it was The Last Olympian or it was some book where Percy says that, oh, fighting side by side is something Annabeth and I are great at. Kind of side note from Persabeth, but there is like the ghost of Peter, whatever his second name is, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. It's a Dutch name and I do not want to butcher it, so I'm just going to let it be. But basically the architect ghost they summon to help like with the fixing of the manse, um also like dawns, so they like the ghosts very quickly catch on that the if we are in mortal bodies, if we possess mortal bodies, these demigods won't be able to do much to hurt us. Um so he donned this police officer basically, and I think there was a bunch of lines that kind of seemed like commentary on police and the attitudes of police officers and like the whole defund the police and black rights movement, where the Black Lives Matter movement, and the whole like anti-police down with the police thing, which I mean I totally agree with that. I'm in support of that, and that is why I'm saying that this felt like a little bit of subtle commentary on how, because Peter is like very bigoted and very prejudiced. So now the guy who's prejudiced and bigoted is in like a position of power and is possessing a policeman. So that was interesting. He knows like whose house they're trying to get him to fix, and he's like, oh, my mother must pay for her pagan crimes, and he seems like to be very against his mother. And I'm like, oh, mommy issues, lovely. This is genuinely what I've written on the page right now. I don't know if you can see that. Mommy issues, lovely. Another thing, the moral eel aerial squadron. Basically, the moral eels also come in to help them fight the ghosts, and that's so funny. And Percy literally calls them the moral eel aerial squadron. Squadron. Not sure how that's pronounced, but absolute cinema. I love that. I can visualize that, and it's fucking amazing. More Persabeth. So Percy literally says on page 296, "Hey, wise girl," I said, trying to keep the panning out of my voice. "Be wise." Period. I don't know much, but I do know we're stronger together. Always. I mean, it's not even that romantic of a line, but like, I mean, Persabeth and Persabeth are the sweetest, and Persabeth are the best couple ever. Period. And then again on page 297, Annabeth and I were more than just two people. We were a pair. And when we stood at the crossroads, we did it together. I screamed and forced my torch inward. Annabeth did the same. Love him, love them. There's okay at 302. I think this is one of my favorites, along with a line at why Percy, when they're talking about why she saw the buildings when she had the fever dream related to Hakuba. She saw Troy itself, the city itself, and Percy saw like the world and life through Hakuba's eyes in her last moments as a human. At that time also, like when they're discussing, and she's like, "Oh, you have a thing with people. You understand, you are very smart, just in a different way. I might understand architecture and I might understand stuff like that, but you also are very smart and you understand people a lot in a way that I never would, I never could." And I think that's also something I agree with, coming from psychology and knowing that intelligence is not just logical and analytical, it is linguistic, it is interpersonal, it is intrapersonal, it is naturalistic, it is musical. There are as many types of intelligence as one can conceptualize. And I agree with that. So Percy does have that interpersonal, intrapersonal intelligence where he understands his own emotions and those of other people, and he's very in tune with that. And that is smartness too, that is intelligence as well. But basically, at page 302, so yeah, they talk about their fatal flaws, and Percy's like, um, "We've all got our fatal flaws. If yours is hummus," and then she says, "No, hubris." That's what I said. I'm fine with it. It balances out my flaw of being too modest about my incredible dance moves. Love Percy humor, classic Percy humor. Basically, again, she says that, yeah, you are a pretty smart guy and you know how to like talk to people, and so he basically is consoling her here as well. He is saying what he knows is going to make her feel better, and what is also the truth, not just sugar coated nice words to placate somebody, but some, like, he's being genuine and he is being sweet and he's being kind and he's being the best boyfriend ever. And he also has to like do the he also has to, so like, just repairing the man's physically is not enough, like it's crumbling because the very life force of it is gone. The very thing that makes a house a home is not there because Hecate is hurting, and Hecate needs somebody to like, she just basically needs people to bring that life back into her life, to bring that like energy back into her life. And again, so like Annabeth shares those ideas with Percy, and Percy resonates with them, and also is reminiscent of what happens at the end of The Last Olympian, where Percy goes, "Okay, you gods have been little biatches for too long, and you need to own up and you need to claim your demigod children. You can't just like let things be this very disorganized way. You have to care about your children. You have to care about other beings other than just yourself. You have to stop being selfish, and you have to stop being afraid of like that's the thing with Hecate as well. Like, she has to stop being afraid of what might happen, what might go wrong, and just take that leap of faith and just do the good thing, do the good deed instead of like catastrophizing. So I think, yeah, instead of just like letting things be, it's easy and comfortable to just let things be, and let things be bad also. If it's a bad situation, if it's bad circumstances, it's easy to just let them be and just like live on and continue, instead of challenging them, and instead of trying to get out of the situation, instead of trying to make it better for yourself. That takes work, that takes effort. and it's not very easy, and human beings are lazy and we want easy, and even like gods are also representative of that. Okay, the system has gone on for this long, we don't claim demigods, the world just works in a very pathetic way, and like, yeah, let things run in a pathetic way, because it's easy to let stuff be than fix stuff. So I think this is very reminiscent of that. Hecate needs to be better and put in effort into being better. And again, that's the thing, that's Percy's strength. And family, like, again, Percy understanding what it means to have family and what it means to be like actually having emotional connections with people. um, and how families are not supposed to backstab and be all about power and glory, but families are supposed to be about caring for each other and loving each other and making the world a better place for each other. So, like, okay, also, all throughout the book, I was literally like, dude, your friends are coming over and they can literally help you fix all the stuff in the mansion. And then the demigods do show up during the fight. So they help them get rid of the undead. And then Harley from the Hephaestus cabin also fixes a chandelier, like, or a light fixture, I think. They end up breaking during the party. So the timeline, though, is kind of weird, because I've been noticing this in like any of the newer books in the universe, any of the newer books that Rick is writing, that even though like the book is supposed to be in like 2010 or 2011, set in those years, there are a lot of references. I think in the last Trials of Apollo book, there was like a BTS reference, and here, while in like during the party, they play the Weekend songs and Texas Hold'em, which I don't think Texas Hold'em came out before 2023. I think that was either 2023 or 2024. So like, what's that about? Other than all the mature themes and all of the dense stuff that I've talked about, I feel there is the same funny narration and the same humor as the original books that I just absolutely adore. Absolute cinema, like cinematic masterpiece. I love people who can make me laugh, and I consider myself an anxious person. I'm prone to overthinking and catastrophizing. And Percy making a joke right in the middle of a very serious situation is something I love. It breaks the spiral where every new thought is like a hypothetical situation worse than the one before. And I mean, if it wasn't already evident that I'm a very romantic person, I think what I'm about to say will make that extremely evident. I think of Percy's humor like that one Augustus Waters quote from The Fault in Our Stars. I'll insert it here.
I am in love with you. You heard me. I am in love with you. And I know that love is just a shout into the void, and that oblivion is inevitable, and that we're all doomed, and that one day all of our labors will be returned to dust. And I know that the sun will swallow the only earth we will ever have. And I am in love with you.
Basically, yes, we are doomed, but there are people and ideas and things that make life worth living. Percy is and has always been that beacon of hope for me. Okay, that was supposed to be light, but it got very emotional. To truly lighten things up, I will read out my favorite quotes from the book that I found funny or cute or beautiful or all of the above. I noted them all down because all of them are worth sharing. Our next lucky winner in the Terrorize a Greek Establishment contest was Papu. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Papu's Pastries. Okay, quote number 2. The undead come and go, but the New York City Department of Health is forever. And this was in reference to there being like the mortals seeing the undead as huge rats. And so, like, Papu, being a mortal, was like very concerned, and he was like, um please don't tell the New York City Department of Health about the rats. And yeah. Mm, My sword was better at slashy slashy than stabby stabby, and I did not want to slashy slashy Annabeth. Papu held his broom at attention and gave us a warrior salute. You are excellent rat killers. If anyone got bitten in half by Hakuba, I wanted it to be me and not Annabeth, but she didn't ask my opinion. See, so like this is Grover mentally communicating with Percy. See, Annabeth will make a great mom. And then Percy's like, dude, one thing at a time. I'm still working on college applications. I really don't know what she expected of me. Maybe hand eye coordination? Ah, yes. Water skiing behind a hellhound through a nightmare landscape while holding a pea prone puppy. Or, as we call it in the demigod business, just another Wednesday night. Hashtag giant dog pulls strange kid through club. I tried to say stop, but got a mouthful of lacy undergarments for my troubles. Nope nosed around, weaving in and out of bushes. He startled himself when he found a pink bra we dragged with us from the department store. Nope is basically a hellhound puppy. He barked at it, then, having shown the undergarment who was the boss, he continued his explorations. I probably would have thrown up if I hadn't already emptied my stomach at the souvlaki shop. I'm clever that way, always planning ahead. I was rambling, but Hakuba hadn't bitten my head off yet. I decided maybe that was progress. Every time I lose someone, I get so angry. I want revenge. But then I remember what my friends would want. The same thing my mom would want for me, to be happy, to find people who matter and hang on to them for as long as I can. This is Percy talking to Hakuba. I can't go back in time. I can't recover the people I've lost. So I have to concentrate on the family I've still got. You can scare all the Greeks you want. It won't heal the grief. It's just chucking more wood into the fire. I think it's better to find your pack and protect it. Annabeth gestured to the front door, which was now reinforced with a vertical tabletop on duct tape hinges. Nothing but the best security for us. Grover wants to hoof boogie with Germans with the dress from Sea of Monsters, which is, I think, they know all the memes we make about Grover getting to see Aryan as Grover in Sea of Monsters. So they're like, yeah, we're just gonna sprinkle that into the book. Now, this is Percy saying, none of the books called out to me, tempting me with secret spells or forbidden wisdom. They probably saw I was just Percy Jackson and decided to save their breath. Books might not have much power over me, but I'm a sucker for small, shiny objects. Just like me for real. I marched over, ready to kick some squirrel posterior in my usual heroic fashion. But the party ended on its own. Aw. Percy tells Grover that nothing on the earth is worth losing his best friend. Absolute cinema, top 10 hardest quotes of all time. I guess they spent all their money on the storefront decorations and hadn't been able to afford any consonants for their sign. He's talking about Philomena's, which is one of the Naiads' sign. She has a fragrance shop called Eya, and that's I think the name of the Cersei Island. Eya, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. So that's what they're saying. Like they spent all their money on storefront decorations and could not afford any consonants for the sign. Then Grover says it looks like something Hephaestus might scream when he drops a hammer on his foot. Then Percy goes, my plan to confuse her until her head exploded was going well. I wanted to encounter more monsters like this who just didn't care. Hated their job and wanted to go on lunch break. So real. This is every Sarkari Karamchari in India, I'm afraid. I was starting to think our polecat friend was being used for nefarious Naiad capitalism, though I wasn't sure how. There was a satyr hero I knew and loved, cowing our enemies with demands of gift wrapping. Whenever Annabeth joined the chat, the odds of us doing something idiotic went way down. The odds were never zero, mind you, because I was still in the mix. So Percy wants to dress up as Spider-Man, and Grover wants to dress up as Spider-Goat, and they want to do a multiverse thing, which was also pretty cool. I was glad no one looked twice at us. Not that they would have, anyways, since you see all kinds in New York. But with Halloween, it was especially easy to walk around dressed as a gladiator in a plastic diaper. Then Percy goes, I did not want to ascend while wearing a lion cloth. And in battle, he loses like his shoe and sock, I think. And he also like the gladiator outfit also looks really bad according to him. So he's like, if I couldn't kill the nymphs with my sword, maybe I could horrify them to death with my appearance. I don't think Percy can ever look so ghastly, but never mind, that's just my opinion. I think Grover says this. They recanted our polecat. We're dead. And then Percy's like, I don't know how mythological villains can afford so much square footage in Manhattan, which is again, I also am curious about that. How are villains always so rich? The polecat glared at him and charted a series of barks so scathing I couldn't print them. Partly because I couldn't spell them, and partly because they were not fit for sensitive audiences. LMAO, that's so funny. Okay. And then so basically Grover kind of gets like his bottom half is like satyr legs, goat legs, and because of like some potion they get sprayed with, he gets like human legs, and then he's like human. That's the worst kind of beast. The ADHD part of my head brain wondered if I could subcontract homework assignments to my new arm brains because Percy got like octopus tentacles for arms. While Phaedra screamed, we ran away like the heroic half mutated demigods we were. Owlabeth and Octopussy, oh my god, that was hilarious. Percy gets like the arms, the octopus tentacles, and Annabeth gets like the an owl's head, basically. The idea of raiding a church graveyard on Halloween made me uneasy. It was bad enough having the Greek gods mad at me. I didn't need to be on Jesus's naughty list too. And then so like one of the guys from I think the Morpheus cabin, Clovis from I think the Morpheus cabin, goes like just says to the Peter guy, the ghost, that it's a big city now. It belongs to all of us. You've done your part. Now you deserve a rest. Bring it in. That's so sweet. Because the guy was just like being very bigoted and being like built a lot of he built Manhattan. He built a lot of Manhattan, most of it, and so it was like most of it or part of it, I don't know. So they were like the first settlers basically. So yeah, it's a big city now. It belongs to all of us. We can coexist. The world is wide enough for the both of us. Grover's fatal flaw is apparently strawberry milkshakes, right? But sometimes life gives you strawberry milkshakes. Then you gotta count on your friends to look out for you. That's so sweet. Somehow I held the goddess's gaze. I didn't even wet my pants because heroism or heroism, I don't know. Pronounce it as you will. What is the English language? He says this, he says like the a Ken thing. My job was ocean, not saving Nereids from their own puddles. He's just Ken, his job is just ocean. Sally says this to Percy. You left them in a better place than you found them, and happier. That's a very Percy thing to do, and I'm proud of you. I cried. Precisely, that is what I was talking about. That is Sally Jackson, and that is Percy Jackson for you. I also wanted to mention their reactions to Hecate. So like Hecate just like shows up in at like 5 in the morning, the day after Halloween, and so Percy, so like Annabeth just gets up and bows. Percy rose in his sleeping bag, fell sideways, and Grover jumped into the air like a cat. That is hilarious. I'm sorry. The book ends with a Persabeth kiss, and I see the best underwater kiss of all time reference. I see the reference, and it's very sweet. And I don't know if Chalice of the Gods also ended like this. I'm not sure, but yeah. I see what you're. There were a couple of parallels to The Last Olympian, not gonna lie. And that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more of me geeking out about random stuff, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you so much.